All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. And generally, I'll start with questions that are asked up to an hour before. So, Ian B, if you're still on here, go ahead and repost your question. Gordon F, if you're on here, go ahead and post your question. Um, William S, if you're on here, go ahead and repost your question. Actually, I can't remember if that was one that was answered. That was probably one that was answered yesterday. But yeah, so I'll be starting here with Mary Carmen C. So Mary Carmen C says, does the loft angle also affect the distance the ball flies? I notice sometimes my club head speed is lower, but I have the right loft angle and my ball goes further. Yes, so definitely the whole, there's a reason why you hit your 3-iron further than your sand wedge, right? It's because there's more loft going on there. You're gonna swing your now this is longer. So here I got a wedge. This is a 50-degree wedge, and I've got a 3-iron right here. So we can see big time loft difference there, right? Length of the club, definitely some difference in the length of the club we're seeing. So I'm definitely going to be swinging this 3-iron faster, but not so much faster that, if this had, uh, 50 degrees of loft on it, it would go a little bit further than this because it's longer and I'll probably swing it a little bit faster, but not much further. So the main thing here is, yes, lower loft, you're going to get more compression on the golf ball. The more energy you're going to be able to transfer to the golf ball, you're going to hit it further. The way you can kind of think about it is, imagine I'm hammering a nail into a piece of wood, right? If I were to do that, the most efficient way to drive that nail into that piece of wood would be to go straight down into that from all angles, just straight down into it, no loft or anything on it, just a hammer straight down into that nail. Now, if I were to come at that nail and let's say come at it from an angle like that, right? I'm not transferring as much energy into that piece of nail to be able to drive it into the piece of wood. Let's say that I was taking it with this club and I was going straight down into it, but I had this loft on this club. So it was kind of a glancing blow onto the nail. Again, not as much energy being transferred into it. So that's kind of the same thing that's happening when you're hitting golf shots. If you have not a lot of loft on your club, you're hitting it with more of a direct blow. And if you have more loft on your club, you're hitting it with more of a glancing blow. Now the ball will go higher and the ball won't go as far. So that's how we're able to control distances and get different distances and have good gapping. That's why we have a 5-iron, a 6-iron, a 7-iron, 8-iron, because we want these clubs to go certain distances, and that's controlled some with the length of the club. Because longer clubs, you're typically going to swing faster. That mostly, though, with the loft of the club, that's changing the distances for you. So a good question there. And continue to ask your questions. I will go back and answer Ian's question here since we don't have any more questions posted on here. But go ahead and post your questions if you got them, and we'll answer them. So Ian B says, I've worked through the program and my swing has improved tremendously, but no matter what I do, I can't seem to bring my ball flight down. I hit a 5-iron higher than most people hit their 9, and although my driver is set at 8 degrees, I routinely poke holes in the clouds. My ball flight is typically a really high draw. Any suggestions? So some things to keep in mind here is that one thing that does make your ball go really high is club head speed. If you have a lot of club head speed, then you're playing with people that you have a lot more club head speed than them. It's going to seem like your ball goes so much higher than and it does, but it's just going to seem like it's higher than it should be. And the reason is that if you hit a shot, it's on the same launch angle. Let's say your club head speed's 110 miles per hour, and you're playing with people that swing 90 miles per hour. Well, if you were to hit a shot on the exact same launch angle, all things are equal, but all you did differently was swing at a much higher rate, the ball will stay in the air longer and go higher and climb up into the sky, whereas someone who swings with much less swing speed that doesn't have enough power to keep the ball in the air, so it'll come down. So keep that in mind. If you have a lot more club head speed than the people that you're playing with, you're going to hit the ball higher than them. The other thing that's going to add a lot of loft is forward shaft lean, or the lack of forward shaft lean, that is. So if you're coming into contact, you're releasing that club early. You mentioned that you've worked through the Top Speed Golf system, the straight line release. If you're hitting the ball really, really high, odds are, and it's not just because of your club head speed, odds are you are releasing that club early. So what that would look like is, and what we talk about is the release, is where this club is coming through, and it's splitting the forearms after. So I'm coming through. I haven't released this club yet. It's coming through. It's still not released. And you can see this club is now splitting my forearms right here. That's where we're talking about. That is the release. And we want that to be happening out in front of contact, about 45 degrees. That's where we found most of the best players in the world are at, around that 45 degrees area. So if you are getting in that 45 degrees area, then having a good release of the club results in some good forward shaft lane. So if I'm coming into contact, here I am at contact, I've got some good forward shaft lane, and then I release that club out front. So what you may need to work on is the straight line release course, getting that to where that club is releasing more out front. You also may need to work on the move. The move is one of the best courses out there for improving your forward shaft lane. So the move is a big reason why people flip the club. They come in, they release the club early. So basically you're coming in, you're releasing the club right here. This is very, very common. You'll see the trail wrist is kind of pushing through like this. The lead wrist is breaking down. Very, very common amongst amateur golfers. There's typically a couple things going on here, and they're both covered in the move course. So number one is the shallowing of the club. So that we need to get this club at a shallow point in the transition. Otherwise, we're going to need to make some compensations in the downswing to get the club on plane. So what exactly does that mean, shallowing out the club? Well, basically what it means is that as I'm coming down, I want to have this club, the shaft, at an angle so that the club is relatively on plane. The club head is relatively on plane so that I don't have to make any compensations in the downswing to get it to work down on plane. If I'm steep coming down, you've probably heard this before, coming down steep. What that means is that as I'm coming down, you can see this club is more in a steep position. This club head, my plane is roughly, kind of in this area. This club head is way off the plane. So my options are to either kind of continue straight down into the golf ball, and if I do that, I'm gonna put that club in the ground 2 feet behind the ball. Intuitively, nobody's really gonna do that. I don't really see anybody do that. Maybe a total beginner golfer you might see do that, who doesn't have any awareness, but anyone who's played golf and been able to make some solid contact with the golf ball is definitely not doing that. One thing that I often see people do, not as often as the last piece that I'm going to show you, but they'll get here and then they'll kind of continue and go this way. They'll kind of cut across and it'll be an over the top. And this will allow you to get to the golf ball, but see, I'm swinging way off plane. I'm swinging way, way over the top. This will be a complete out to in type swing. That's going to be pulls and slices galore on those shots, unless you just time it perfectly and you're able to hit a fade that you time perfectly with your face and path. What most people do when they get in this steep position is they'll stand up, because what happens is when you stand up, that raises the handle. When the handle raises, the head drops. And look at that. Now I'm back on plane. But the problem here is that I've stood up. And when I stand up, what do I have to do to get to the golf ball? I have to flip the club to get to the golf ball. I have to release that club early. And that's where you might be adding loft. So it's hard for me to know exactly what's going on without seeing your swing. But that's typically what goes on when you see somebody who has the flip. Now, you may have somebody who's perfectly shallowed out. They've got this club in a nice shallow position. And just a checkpoint would be lead arm parallel to the ground. If you're looking from this down the line view, film your swing on video. You're looking from this down the line view. Pause when your hands are about level with your shoulders. Lead arm parallel to the ground, right in that area, and see where this butt end of the club is pointing. If that butt end of the club is pointing way inside the golf ball, you're coming down steep, and you're most likely going to need to make some sort of compensation on the downswing. You might need to work on the move course. So that's basically what having that club shallowed out is. You want to have that butt end of the club pointing at the golf ball, or actually a little bit outside the golf ball is good, is a good area as well. A foot outside the golf ball is a good area to be in. But typically anywhere in that area at the golf ball is going to be a pretty good position to be in. That means that you've got that club relatively on plane. You're not going to have to make any crazy compensations in the downswing to get it to come down on plane like standing up. The other reason why people might stand up is because of the way that they are used to squaring the face. So just like I talked about a minute ago, we're coming through contact and we're pushing through with this trail hand. This lead wrist is breaking down. It's going kind of in this motion like that. So that's how you might be used to squaring the face. There's all kinds of reasons why you might do that. It might feel powerful to you. It might just be the natural way that you know how to square up the face. It might be that you've been coming down steep so long and standing up that that's the only way that you're able to square the face. There's all kinds of reasons why you might do that, but you might be coming down shallow, but also doing this. So you might have the shallow part down, but then be coming into contact and standing up by doing that. And that's all because of the way that you square the face. So you have to change that. You have to change the way that you square the face. If you were to stay in your posture here and get some forward shaft lean and still have these same wrist angles where I'm pushing through with the trail hand, my lead hand is breaking down. If we watch as I'm coming through contact, I have forward shaft lean here. Look at my wrist angles are the same. Everything's broken down, but look at my club face. It's wide open. Intuitively, we're not going to do that, right? Just like intuitively, we're not going to come down steep and stick the club into the ground at 2 feet behind the golf ball at contact. You're going to try to save that at the last second to square up the face, and that's where that flipping comes from. You're trying to get that club face square. You're reacting to trying to be able to hit a good golf shot. So what you have to do is you have to change the way that you square the face. So if I go back to that same position when I'm coming into contact, forward shaft lean, but open club face, look at what I have to do with my wrist to square that face. So now what I've done is I've what we call turning the handle. That's that squaring of the face there. So what I've done with my wrist, my lead wrist, I've done this. I turn that handle. So it's almost like a little bit of a throttle kind of movement. I've turned this handle to be able to square it up. My trail wrist, I've actually kind of bent it back. This is what we call wrist extension. I've bent my wrist back to square up the face. So that we've put those two together, and you can see that's what's squaring the face. So that's what you have to do in the move is you got to get this club shallowing out, and then you've got the face squaring earlier. Now, from this position right here, I'm in a really powerful position to be able to stay in my posture and continue to rotate into contact with forward shaft lean. So if you look at it from this angle, I've got this club shallowed out. I've turned the handle down, and I'm able to rotate into contact with forward shaft lean and a square club face. And that's basically what all tour players are doing is they're shallowing out the club. And even the tour players that aren't shallowing out the club a ton, like Phil Mickelson, he's still getting that club pretty shallow, not really shallow. It's still just a hair steep, but he's getting that club face squared earlier in the downswing, and he's releasing that club out front. And as you know, he's got great control of his ball flight. Fantastic player. So that's one thing that you may need to work on is the move to get there. And you know what? Hey, I'd love to be able to help you and tell you exactly what you need to work on. I do offer unlimited swing reviews where you can send me videos of your swing and I can tell you exactly what's going on, walk you through exactly what you need to do. And we'll work through the move course together and some other drills that I might have to really help you along the way. If you're interested in that, go to the top of the page there and click Get a Review. That will take you to the Unlimited Swing Review page. If I don't have spots available, which I often don't have spots available because I have a limited number of students that I can work with, go ahead and join that waiting list so that next time I open up spots, you can join right then and there. The last couple times I've opened up spots, we sent out the email to the waiting list. I've actually sold out to the waiting list. So people that weren't on the waiting list didn't even have a chance or weren't even aware that I had spots open. So I highly recommend doing that. And as a Top Speed Golf member, you have access to this move course that I'm talking about as well. To get to it, it's very easy. All you have to do is go to the top of the page, click the house icon. That's going to take you to the homepage. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see a list of all the courses on the website. We have 20 plus courses on the website. Get started on the move there. But you're going to want to check your swing first. You might just be hitting it high because you have a lot of club head speed. So keep that in mind. But the move course, if you see that flippy, you're flippy through contact, you're coming down steep, you're with that trail hand, you're really pushing that through, the move course and the straight line release are the courses that you're going to want to work on for sure. All right, so let's see if there's any more questions posted. All right, so James M says, Q, I made a video of my swing with a wedge and I was releasing the club at my right leg. Is this wrong? So where we want to be releasing the club is about 45 degrees out in front. So I'm not sure if you're right-handed or not, but if you are releasing the club at your right leg, meaning you're coming down and the club is splitting your forearms at this point, if I'm coming down, I'm splitting my forearms right here. That's a really early release there. That's absolutely wrong. You're going to be super scoopy through impact. It's going to be hard to be consistent. So what we like to see where the release is happening, even if you're left-handed and you're coming in this way and you're releasing the club at your leg, that's still too early. It's not as early as the other one, but it's still too early. You want to be releasing that club about 45 degrees out front, whether it's a wedge, whether it's a driver, whatever it is. You want to be releasing that club about 45 degrees out front. Otherwise, it's going to be tough to be consistent. You might even be hitting up on the golf ball when you're hitting shots off the turf, which the ground's in the way. So we definitely don't want to be doing that, right? So we don't want to flip with the driver as well. We're going to be hitting up on that ball by virtue of that ball being further up in your stance. So we want to be releasing this club about 45 degrees out in front. So out at contact, if we're seeing where this club is splitting my forearms, I'm coming in, here's contact, and then I'm coming through, we're seeing where this club is splitting my forearms. So I've choked up on this club so you can see the grip and where that is splitting my forearms. It's right there. It's about 45 degrees out in front. The reason why we say 45 degrees, it's not the exact, but we see average tour player, I believe, is about 41 degrees, something like that. But we say 45 degrees because it's a very easy angle to conceptualize. If you're thinking of a 90-degree angle, right? I think everyone knows what a 90-degree angle is, 90-degree angle. So half of a 90-degree angle is 45. So you can kind of think of, okay, it's a half of a 90-degree angle. It's an angle that's just like that, right out front. So we want to get that club releasing more out front. So you may need to work on the straight line release course. You may not need to work on the move course that I just talked about. But yeah, that's if you're releasing it anywhere in relationship to either leg. If you're right-handed and you're releasing it to your right leg, that's really early. That's going to be a super scoopy motion through contact. You're losing a lot of power, and it's going to be hard to be consistent. The reason why you're losing power is because you're adding loft. If I'm coming in like this, I'm adding loft to the face. I'm turning, this is a 50-degree wedge. 50 degrees is when I have this shaft straight up and down. That's what we call the static loft. If I have this shaft straight up and down like that, that loft that's being measured to the ground there is 50 degrees. If I angle this forward, I get some forward shaft lean. I'm de-lofting the face. I'm taking this down to, 35 degrees or something like that. But if I'm coming in, I'm releasing early. My club is releasing at my leg, and then I'm coming into contact, and I'm right there. I actually have what we call backward shaft lean. Maybe I'm like that. I'm turning this into, this is 55 degrees, 60 degrees of loft. Then I'm coming into impact, and it's going to be hard. You're going to be losing a lot of distance when you do that. Now, with a wedge, that might be a good thing at times to add a bunch of loft. But let's say I have a 3-iron, and I'm trying to hit this 3-iron pretty far. All right. So if I have some good forward shaft lean, loft on a 3-iron is roughly 19 degrees, something like that, 18 degrees. If I have some forward shaft lean here, I'm de-lofting that, right? I'm taking 10 degrees off. Now I'm hitting it with 8 degrees of loft. That's a lot of compression. That's what you're seeing with what tour players are doing. Now, if I'm adding loft to it, I'm coming into contact, and I have backwards shaft lean. I'm taking this to 25 degrees of loft. I've now turned it into essentially a 6-iron, right? I've turned this into a 6-iron or a 5-iron, and I'm not getting as much compression on the golf ball. So you want to make sure that you're releasing that club out in front. You're going to want to work through the straight line release, because that basically forward shaft lean is a product of having a good release out in front. If I'm releasing this club out in front, I'm going to have some good forward shaft lean at contact. So that's going to allow you to get some D-loft to face, get some good compression on the ball, allow you to hit it much, much further. It's like Mary Conran's question. She asked, why, does loft make a difference in the distance? Absolutely. It makes a huge difference in your distance for sure. You can hit a ball. If you have to hit the ball so much harder to get it to go the same distance if you are adding a lot of loft versus taking off a lot of loft. Imagine the difference between this. This is turning your 3-iron into like a 1-iron, right? If you're having forward shaft lean, and this is turning your 3-iron to a 5-iron. That's a 4 or 5 club difference there, right? So that's basically what's going on. So continue to get your questions on here. I'll be happy to help. We got 40 minutes or so left, or not quite 40 minutes. So go ahead and post your questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. In the meantime, I'll go back and see. It looks like there was one more question that was posted. All right, so Gordon F. Not sure if you're on here, but Gordon F. posted this. It was either yesterday morning after office hours was over or late last night. It says, can you address the position of the left hand in the backswing parallel to the ground? 3/4 back, full back, and then in 3/4 parallel and impact on the downswing. Thanks. So the position of the left hand. Sure, we can go through that a little bit. And also want to mention, we do have a video where Clay covers this. If you want to check it out, it's called Left Hand in Crazy Detail. We have some crazy detail videos where Clay talks about individual pieces, whether it's the hand, the hands, the shoulders, elbows, legs, lead leg, trail leg, hips, all those things. He goes into crazy detail about the movements of these things in the swing. And one thing to keep in mind is that these videos are not intended for you to go out and try to perfect every little left hand movement. What you really want to do is focus on the Top Speed Golf system, get your spine angle correct, get your power turn, get your lag working correctly, get your compression line, get your release. If you do that, all these movements with your entire body are going to happen on your own, as long as you're focusing on those movements and those movements only. If you just work on the left hand individually, you're not going to be able to. It's just going to be a lot more difficult to do it that way. So let's go through it a little bit. Essentially, and there's going to be some margin for error, not margin for error necessarily, but there's going to be some variance on the position that you can be in. So, for instance, in the backswing, you're talking in the backswing going from parallel to the ground. Ideally, what I'd like to see is I like to see a pretty much flat lead wrist here, but you're going to have a little bit of what we call ulnar deviation here, which means I'm going to kind of thumb out away from me. So you're going to be kind of like that. And that's allowing you to have a nice wide takeaway there. If I have this radial deviation here as I'm going up the top, I'm picking the club up, and it's going to be a little bit harder for me to get a full shoulder turn. So ideally, what we like to see is some ulnar deviation there, flat with the thumbs out, thumbs down position as you're coming back. So I like to be about right there. And the movement is basically going from here to there. That's all it is. Club can be in line with it. That's going to be a pretty good place to be. If you're a little bit inside, that's fine, as long as we're not coming way over the top in the downswing. You can be a little bit outside. Again, that's fine, as long as it's not causing you to have momentum to go away from the inside. But ideally, that's basically where you're at there. Now, at the top of the swing, we're going to be in that full, kind of almost near full thumbs up position. So that's going to be the radial deviation kind of position. And again, flat or slightly bowed is where you want to be. So flat would be right there. That would be bowed. Slightly bowed is somewhere in between. So that's basically where you want to be at the top of the swing there. And then as you're coming down, you want to get this club, this hand bowing a little bit flat, or getting into what we would call, this is wrist flexion with the lead wrist as I'm coming down. And that's what's squaring the face. We just talked about with the move earlier. That's getting you to square the face in the downswing. And that's when lead arm is parallel to the ground. You're getting that club to square the face a little bit. Now, depending how weak or strong your grip is, depends on how much you're going to need to do that and the appearance of it as you're coming into contact. But basically, let's say I have a very, very strong grip, meaning that I'm not talking about the pressure that I'm putting into the club, how hard I'm holding onto it. I'm talking about the position of my hand on the grip. So if I have a strong grip, that would be my hand rotating to where my thumb is kind of on the back of the club. A lot of times people talk about the V's of the hand. When you put your thumb close to the side of your hand there, you can see a crease forms. And we talk about where that crease is pointing. So if I'm at address here, I have my crease pointing outside of my right shoulder. That would be an extremely strong grip. So as I'm coming down, I'm probably not going to, it's probably going to be more of a flat lead wrist as I'm coming down. I'm not going to need to bow it very much in the downswing to get that club face square. It's going to be already kind of in a square position. Then as I come into contact, you can see I might even have the appearance of some cupping here at contact to have forward shaft lean and a square club face. Now, if you have a very weak grip, meaning now I'm taking my thumb and I put it straight up and down on the shaft, and I'm going to both ends of the extreme strong and basically extreme weak. This would be the thumb going straight down the shaft. The crease on my hand is kind of pointing up toward my chin here. As I'm coming down, I'm going to require a little bit more bowing of that lead wrist to be able to square that up. So as you can see, as I'm coming now into contact, square club face, forward shaft lean, look at my wrist. It's more in a bowed position here at contact because I had a weak grip. So that's typically why it's easier to have a little bit stronger of a grip. If you're having trouble with forward shaft lean and you have a very neutral grip or a weak grip, you may want to try a little bit stronger of a grip to see if that makes it easier to get into the position. You still have to do things with the trail hand. Like I can have a really strong grip, but if I'm coming through contact and I'm pushing through with my trail hand, I'm still going to flip the club. So it makes it easier, the movement of the lead hand, but that trail hand still needs to be in a bent back position as we're coming into contact to be able to get some forward shaft lean. So again, as I'm coming down, as I'm coming down to this position here, if you're looking from this angle, I'm getting some bow in my wrist. Maybe it's flat, maybe it's bow, depending on the strength of your grip and what needs to happen as you're coming into contact. But we're in that thumbs up position, that radial deviation position as I'm coming down to this max lag position. And then I'm going to slowly start to release it from there. And I'm going to get into more ulnar deviation as I'm coming down, as I'm kind of rolling the wrist and squaring it up and getting forward shaft lean. I'm in this position right there. And then after contact, in that straight line release, I'm in ulnar deviation here, really pushing down. My wrist is still going to be relatively flat. After that release, it can kind of break down and come all the way around into the full finish. So I'm straight line release here, and then it kind of, if you look at it from this angle, this is probably the best angle, and then you can see it kind of breaks down as my right hand kind of comes over it. So again, if you want to learn more in more detail about this, go check out that crazy detail vault video. To get to that vault video, all you got to do is go to the top of the page, click the instruction tab. That will expand a menu. In that menu, you will see vault categories. Click on that, and then click on the crazy detail, and then click on the left wrist crazy detail video. And again, these crazy detail type things are not intended for you to go out and focus on each individual movement. I'm imploring you, do not do that, because it's not the best way to go about it. It's just going to make things a lot more difficult for you. It's kind of getting out into the weeds a little bit. You're going to get analysis by paralysis. Focus on the system. Focus on having the spine angles correct in the swing. Focus on having a good shoulder turn. Focus on getting some lag in the transition. Focus on getting a good compression line, not bumping the hips out and getting that rotation through contact. Focus on releasing that club out front. If you focus on those 5 things, then it will fix, automatically you'll do things with the left wrist that you should be doing. You'll be doing things with your hips that you should be doing. All these things will automatically happen. You'll do them intuitively. And that's really the best way to actually learn your swing, is to get to do the things that matter the most. They're going to help you improve the most. If you focus on the position of your pinky throughout the swing, it's really not going to help you that much. In fact, it may make you worse. So really, really focus. These crazy detail videos are only really meant to be informative. They're for the people that really just want to know how everything's moving. It's not intended for you to go out and practice getting each individual motion perfect, because depending on, there's many factors that may actually have you in a different position, just like what I talked about with the grip. If you have a really strong or really weak grip, that left wrist may be in some different positions based on that throughout the swing, because that's what's going to allow you to get into a good impact position. So focus on the things that really matter the most, like the Tassilo system, and you'll see much better results and faster results going about it in that way. All right, so let's see if we got some more questions that were posted. All right, so James says, you answered my question. Thanks, Q, no problem. All right, so Thomas O says, I'm working through the distance course and driver draw drills. I'm really hitting it solid, about 200 yards. That's better than before, but now but how can I increase distance? I'm strong and I feel like I'm doing it right. So you increase distance by increasing your club head speed. So I'd recommend doing the 20-minute distance fix course, because that's going to be all about increasing your distance, or increasing your club head speed to increase your distance. So there's basically 3 things that improve your distance, that increase your distance. The number one category is range of motion. And basically what that means is creating more space and time for you to accelerate the club. The more space and time you have to accelerate the club, the more club head speed you can generate. So imagine I'm someone who's working on my club head speed, and my shoulder turn is like this. Well, look at where my hands are and where the club is. I don't have a lot of space and time to accelerate this club to be able to create club head speed. But now look, if I get a nice big shoulder turn, I free up my hips, I free up my shoulders, maybe I get my lead heel coming off the ground. I'm really opening up. Now look how much further my club, my hands and my arms are. I have a much more space and time to accelerate the club. It may not seem like a lot of difference going from here to here, but it's a huge difference. It can be the difference of 10 miles per hour in your golf swing, and that's huge. That's 25 plus yards. That's 25, 30 yards if you gain 10 miles per hour. So range of motion, that's a big one. Another way that you can improve your range of motion is by higher hands. So if you think I have a very flat swing, right? So this would be, what that would mean is that my lead arm is kind of going across my chest here. And again, I don't have a lot of space and time here to accelerate the club down to the golf ball. But now look, if I go from here to up here, now I have a lot more space to accelerate the club. So getting the hands higher, we have a drill in the 20-minute distance fix course, the skyscraper drill. We're working on getting our hands more vertical, going more up, more lift in the swing. That's also going to allow you to create more time and space. So that's the first category, and that's a really big one. That's where we usually see a lot of gains from that category. And everyone's going to have bigger gains from certain categories. Maybe you're already someone who is got a big shoulder turn and high hands, but it's just your sequencing is terrible, because that's the second category. The second category is sequencing. So for every powerful athletic movement, there is a loading up phase, and then there's a momentum weight transfer kind of phase, right? So if you think about a baseball pitcher, right? They're winding up, they kick their leg up, they're winding up, they're loading up, and then they fire toward the plate. If you imagine a baseball pitcher if he didn't do the wind up and he just went like this, he ain't going to throw it very far, right? He needs to wind up, have that momentum transfer. That's how you get the most power out of it. There's no fastball pitchers that are throwing in the 90s or even near 100 that are throwing the ball just like that, right? So that's a big part of it. So that's one thing that we work on. The next thing that we work on is what we call lag. So getting these hands kind of out of front of the club head, lagging behind, getting the club head kind of lagging behind the hands a little bit. If you're casting the club, if you're doing this action, casting the club in the downswing, you're burning up all your energy back here, and you're going to have nothing left when it comes to the golf ball. You're losing a lot of speed. So that's one thing that we work on in the sequencing part, is getting to where you're generating some lag. And lag is great. We want to be able to have that lag, but it doesn't really do us any good unless we're releasing it, which is the last part of the sequencing, is getting to where we're generating that lag, and now we're releasing that lag as hard as we can out in front. We really got to release that. If you're generating that lag and then you're just kind of dragging the club through and not releasing it hard, you're not going to get very much speed. You're missing out on some speed there. So sequencing consists of loading up, weight shift, lag, and release. Though that's the big parts of the sequencing part. Now the last part, this is kind of the secret weapon, the one that you probably haven't ever thought of before. You haven't really thought of before, and I understand it because it's not really something that you can see, but it's called neural adaptation. And basically, what it means is when you're going through these drills, you're going to be swinging with 100% effort, meaning I'm not going out there and trying to have a nice smooth swing, just nice and easy, ease it out into the fairway. I'm trying to hit this ball hard. I'm giving 100% effort at the golf ball. And the reason is that your body is going to get used to swinging hard. That doesn't mean that, hey, we're going to tell you to go, this is how you hit the ball further out on the course, is you swing as hard as you can out on the course. No, this is when you're doing speed training. But as hard as you can, speed goes up, that playing speed is also going to go up as well. And I'll tell you a story about myself. I've done this training. I've done the what we call our 20-minute distance fixed course. We didn't have a name for it at the time, but I've done the drills in this course and done the neural adaptation part of it. I started out myself 108, 110. I hit 10 shots. They were all between 108, 110. I hit a few more after that, just kind of get my baseline, just to see how hard, if I swung out of my shoes as hard as I possibly could, and I got up to 114 was the highest I could get. So after that, I went through the training. I increased my range of motion, improved my sequencing, and I did the neural adaptation throughout, where I was swinging as hard as I could. And my speed went from as hard as I could at 114 to as hard as I could 124. But my playing speed went up to 117, 118. So that was the swing that I was comfortable with going out to the golf course and using. And we're talking that's 8 to 10 mile per hour more than what I was doing before. That's about 25 yards off the tee extra, which is huge. I mean, that's a big. I'm going for par 5s and 2. That's basically what it comes down to. So I actually did a little bit of an experiment that kind of help you understand what neural adaptation is all about. My body was kind of getting used to swinging hard, and that felt like my new normal. So 117, 118 felt just like my 108, 110 swing. It didn't feel like I was swinging as hard as I can. It was just because of the neural adaptation, my body getting used to it and recruiting bigger muscles and contracting better, I was able to basically get to a point. And I actually tried to take some swings where I swung 108, 110. The first time I tried it, I swung 112. Like I almost couldn't do it. It felt so slow, even at 112, that I couldn't believe it. It was 112. I thought when I swung, I thought I'd be like 105, but it was actually 112. And that's because my body was getting used to what I was doing. And then I actually got to where I swung about 110 on one, but man, it felt so slow. I felt like a sloth swinging in the club. That's basically what it felt like. But the crazy thing is that 4 weeks before that was my aggressive on the course swing. That felt like it was a pretty hard, aggressive swing before, and now it feels like a very sloth-like kind of swing. And that's what neural adaptation is, and that's what you'll do as you go through the program. And this is one that not a lot of people think about because it's something that you can't really see. You don't really know that it's happening, but you'll see it over time as you go through it. I'm a mechanical. I have a mechanical engineering degree. I went to school for mechanical engineering. I'm very much a person that's technical. I like to see things that are going on, and I can compare this neural adaptation to basically what electrical engineering is. A lot of electrical engineering is stuff that you can't see what's going on. It's internally happening, but you know that it's happening there. Like that's a hot wire. You can't touch it, right? So that's basically kind of the same thing. It's happening internally, and you don't really notice any big change in it until you've done it over a course of time through the course. So take that seriously when you're doing the course. And it's 20 swings. It's 20 swings 3 days a week where you're giving 100% effort. So it's not like we're asking you to hit an entire bucket of range balls where you're swinging as hard as you can. But also what you're doing is you're taking breaks between these swings. You need time to replenish your energy. So you imagine if you ran a 40-yard dash, right, as hard as you possibly could. You're at the NFL Combine. You do your 40-yard dash as hard as you possibly could. I mean, you're not. If you were asked, okay, give me another one right now. Let's see if you can beat it. You're thinking, there's no way I can beat it. I'm tired. I don't have any energy to do that. Well, that's the same thing that's happening in the golf swing. If we give 100% effort on a swing, we shouldn't feel like I can swing right now and be able to get that same kind of effort. You need to let your batteries kind of refresh. Let your energy build back up again. Typically, we tell you to wait about a minute. That's usually enough time to build up your energy. The golf swing, you're giving 100% effort. It's a second that you're giving it. So, it's actually less than a second that you're giving it. So it doesn't take much time, but we tell you to take about a minute between swings. So if you're someone who's used to kind of machine gunning balls out there, it's going to be a little bit tough for you at first, but it's really going to help you with that neural adaptation part of it, replenish your energy, swing with 100% effort, focus. It's also going to help you to refocus on what you're doing. Because a lot of times when you machine gunning balls out there, you're losing focus on what you're trying to do. So that's also a helpful part of it. So go through the 20-minute distance fix. Highly recommend it. It's included with your membership to Top Speed Golf. It's the best thing that you can do to increase your distance, increase your club head speed, and start out driving your buddies. So to check that out, all you have to do is go to the top of the page, click the instruction tab. That'll expand a menu, and then click the 20-minute distance fix right there, and start hitting it really far. All right. So Mike L says, what was the product Clay referred to that shows wrist deviation worn like a watch? I'm trying to think of what you're. I think you might be thinking of the Hack Motion. Yeah. So Hack Motion, it's a device. It's got a wrist portion of it, and then you got one that goes over your wrist like that. And it will show kind of these wrist positions that I talked about. So I was talking about the lead hand, the left hand earlier, where we have ulnar and radial deviation. We have flexion and extension. Or sorry, no, it's the other way. Extension. This is flexion. This is extension. And then you're going to have pronation and supination. It's going to tell you those 6 movements of your wrist, because basically what it does is it's measuring. You have this on your wrist here, and you have this on your wrist here, and it's measuring the differences between those, and it's telling you what those angles are. It's I think it's helpful in a sense to see if you're kind of getting it in the right positions for sure. So I think anything where you're getting a feedback mechanism is awesome. So just do a Google search of Hack Motion. You'll be able to find it there. As far as price goes, I can't remember how much it is. It might be $500. It might be more than that. I'm not sure. But it connects to an app on your phone. You download a free app, and then you just have to have the device. It hooks up to the device through Bluetooth, and then you can see kind of you can work on the positions of your hand and so on and so forth. So it's a cool device to kind of show you what's going on there. I think it also has pro models on there, so you can kind of see what tour players are at. It has the acceptable range of motion on there. So if you're someone who's really cupping your wrist at the top, it could be a good device because you can set it up to where it'll beep at you if you're in the wrong position. And if you're in the right position, it'll kind of sing to you a little bit. So if you kind of go up to the top and you're like this and you're working on having a wrist that's more flat at the top to make it easier to come into contact, it may come up here and it'll say or something like that. And then you can work on having that feedback. So it's a little bit better than having to look on camera all the time, because that can be tedious, going back and forth, looking on camera to see what's going on. But also wrist positions at impact, it can help you to tell you if you're breaking down and flipping through contact, if you're getting in the right positions or not. But yeah, that's Hack Motion, HACK, and then Motion. So just check that out. Do a Google search of that, and you'll be able to find it and start working with it if you'd like to. All right. All right, so Kevin S. says, I'm 6'3". I find that if I start my swing with a slight de-lofting forward push, then make my backswing. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. My ball flight is lower and contact more crisp. This puts the ball on most of my clubs slightly forward of center to the heel on setup. I find that when I start the club back of center, I tend to push the ball to right. I am in my first week. Is this good or bad setup? So the setup is the best setup is the one that gets you in the right position at impact. Impact is the only thing that matters. Everything that you do at your setup, in your backswing, in the downswing, is to improve, in your follow through, we'll throw that in there too, is to improve what's happening at impact. So if you're doing something in your swing, it improves what's going on at impact, then that is the right thing. That is what you should be doing. If you change it and you do something else and it makes your impact worse, then don't do that thing. So it's really as simple as that. What may work for you may not work for somebody else, and what may work for somebody else may not work for you. Everyone's got their own little. If you think about Matt Wolff, for example, Matt Wolff, not sure if you're familiar with him. He's a young guy on tour. This is his. I think his last year was his rookie year. He won a tournament in his rookie year. I think he's going to be definitely a guy on tour for a long time. He's a really young guy, really, really talented. I think he's going to win a lot of tournaments for sure. So he's kind of got some interesting swing mechanics and idiosyncrasies with his swing. So one thing that he does to start his swing is he does this kind of hip thing where he'll go, his right knee will kind of drive in toward the golf ball. He'll get his hips kind of open and he'll push the club forward, kind of like a forward press, kind of like what you're talking about. And then he'll start the backswing. So that's what he does at address. And recently I watched a video that he was in where he talked about why he does that. Is because he was working on something and with his coach, and he was working on getting into a position at contact. So a drill that he was having him do is he was working on having him get into the impact position at contact and then go back to address and start the swing. Well, for him, that was really, really working and helping him get into a good impact position. And then basically, eventually, it just turned into that's what he does to start the swing now, as he gets into that, what he feels like is a good impact position. And then he starts his swing from there. So that's what works for him. Now, would that work for Tiger Woods? Maybe not. You get whatever you do in your swing, it has to be to improve what's going on at impact. So that's basically what it comes down to. If you having a little bit forward press helps you to get into that position, what you don't want to get into is automatically thinking that doing certain things in the swing is going to help what's going on at impact, because that's not how it works. Just because you get into a position at address doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen at impact. You may do the exact same thing that you were doing before. But hey, if it helps you get into a great position at impact, then that's what you should do. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Everything should be results driven. If you're doing something and it's helping you get better results, then who am I to tell you that that's wrong, or any coach? I wouldn't tell you that's wrong. Now, there could be things that you can do to improve it, or to improve what's going on at Impact, and that's what I would be here for. That's what I'd be all about, is trying to help you to continue to improve what's going on at Impact, not trying to change things that you're already doing that are helping you get into a better impact position. All right. So Dave P says, on video with a wedge, my shoulders look level on back and through swings. Will this help cause vertical shaft and early release? So if you are standing up, meaning you're going up to the top and your shoulders are level, this is typically going to cause an early release. The reason is because if you don't come back down, you're standing up. So if my shoulders are level here, I'm standing up and I'm just going to throw the club at the golf ball. So what you need to do is you need to maintain that spine angle. One thing that you can do is put a club across your shoulders here and make sure you go socket to socket. You can actually go straight down, just like that, right across my collarbone. I'm right on, I got some front deltoid muscles. I'm just putting that club right on top of that as I'm holding that. What I can do is now I can go and do my rotation up to the top, and I can keep my shoulder angle down. If you're doing this, you're going to be able to clearly see that you are leveling out. So going up to the top and feeling that trying to get this steeper. The reason why you want to have it up here is, watch what happens. If I put it in my elbow pits, I see this all the time. People they tell them put the club across their shoulders. They put it down here. This, I can manipulate this with my arms and do whatever I want. I can go up to the top here and swing and have my shoulders to where they're level, but I can go like that and be like, oh, look, my shoulders are steep. They're not really steep. I'm just kind of doing this. That's not really a motion that I would actually be doing. Get it on top of your shoulders here, going across your collarbone. There's a bone that you'll feel right below your neck. You'll feel it right here. There's a little notch in the middle of it. That's where you want this club going across, right there. And that's gonna, I can move my arms around everywhere. I can move my shoulders a little bit, but the main thing here is I'm trying to get that shoulder angle going down and remaining in my posture. A good thought to have, and this is actually from Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons book, is to imagine I'm setting up here and I have a plane of glass going from my neck here, the top, the top of my shoulders. There's a plane of glass laying on top of my shoulders, and it's going straight down to the golf ball. And I'm imagining that I'm keeping my shoulders on that plane as I'm going up to the top. So there's a hole in the glass. My head is through the hole. It's resting on my shoulders, and it's going straight down to the golf ball. As I'm going up to the top, I'm trying to keep my shoulders on that plane of glass. If I go like that, then I'm not on that plane of glass. That plane of glass is like that, and my shoulders are leveling out. So focus on putting that club across your shoulders, right on the shoulders there. Get that angle down. Stay in your posture. Go through into the full finish and work on that. Yeah, if you are standing up, because if I'm standing up in the backswings, let's say I'm going like this, level shoulders. Now in the downswing, I'm going to have to go way down. That's just not something people do. People are typically going to go level shoulders, and then they're just going to go level shoulders in the downswing too, because it's just a lot easier to do. So if you were able to stay in your posture as you're going up to the top, it'd be a lot easier than standing up and then having to go way down. You're also going to be a lot more consistent because you're not going to have that jerking motion as you're coming down. All right, so William W. says, I know you say 20-minute distance fix is the best way to improve your distance, but I went through it and already hit driver 260 plus. What's the second best way to improve your game? It's still going to be the 20-minute distance fix. I understand if you hit 260 plus, but that means that your club head speed is probably 105. Get to 115. That's really going to be the best way. The club head speed is going to be the best way to improve your distance. There's no better way to improve your distance than improving your club head speed. The only other way is to improve your contact. That's it. So improve hitting it in the center of the face. That's the only other thing I would say. So if you're hitting it all over the face, way off the toe, way off the heel, that's definitely going to be hurting your distance. If you're hitting it at big slices and hooks and things like that, that's definitely hurting your distance. But club head speed is going to be the number one thing. So you say you're hitting at 260 plus, that means that your club head speed is probably about 105. Get to 115. There's no reason why you can't get to 115 and start hitting at 300. So that's what I'd recommend doing. And it's going to be a lot easier to play golf when you're doing that. So imagine, so let's say you're hitting at 260 plus, okay? Well, you're on a par 5. Let's say it's 500 yards. You hit a great drive. Let's say you hit at 270, okay? Well, now you have 230 yards into the hole. Well, at that point, it might be a 3-wood or something like that, I would imagine, if you're swinging 105. And that's a really good 3-wood probably, getting it to go that far. Like, you've got to really catch it and flush it. Well, let's say you hit it 300 yards. You got up to 115, and now you're hitting it 300 yards. Well, on this 500-yard par 5, you're hitting it 300 yards. Now you have 200 yards out, okay? And maybe before, from 200 yards out with 105 club head speed, that might have been like a 4-iron or maybe a hybrid. Now that you're swinging 115, it might be a 6-iron. So now you're going from hitting driver 3-wood, both of which you would have to catch perfectly if you're swinging about 105 miles per hour with a 260 plus distance. And now that you've gained 10 miles per hour, now you're at 115. Now you're hitting driver 6-iron. How many more eagle attempts do you think you're going to have with your driver 6-iron versus driver 3-wood? I know for myself, I'm gonna hit it a lot more often with my 6-iron than I am with my 3-wood. So that's really how you can really improve your game a ton. The only other way beyond that would just be improving your contact, which if you're already hitting it in the center of the face most of the time, there's not much more that you can do to get there, unless you're hitting down on the ball a ton. So if you're hitting down on the ball a lot, then you're adding a lot of spin, which would be reducing your distance. Working on hitting more up on the ball to launch it may help you to hit a little bit further. Maybe if you have 115 club head speed and you're hitting at 260 plus, there's definitely an issue with your contact in there somewhere. Because if you're swinging 115, you should be hitting at 300 plus yards. So, on your good ones. So yeah, you may want to look at contact on the face. If you're hitting big slices or big hooks all the time, that's going to reduce your distance as well. So working on swinging more on plane with a square club face is going to help you to where you can get more distance. So all those things are going to help. But the number one thing, I wouldn't be looking for the second thing. I'd be looking for the number one thing. For some people, the contact, the slicing, the hooking. I have a buddy that I play with frequently. He's got 115, probably club head speed, 115 to 120, swings pretty darn hard. But he struggles with hitting it on the toe a lot. So for him, he doesn't need to work on his club head speed. Club head speed's pretty darn good. It's really, he just needs to work on his strike on the face. So if you're in that kind of situation, then you need to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. So if you're hitting it way out on the toe, I would imagine if you're hitting it 260 plus, contact probably isn't the issue. And it's probably because he was swinging 115, but he was hitting his drives like 230 because he was hitting it so poorly off the face. And that's if he got a decent one. So yeah, club head speed's 112, get to 120, man. There's no reason for that. If you're 112, you probably should be hitting a little bit further. So not sure if you're hitting a slice or a hook or you're mishitting it, but you may want to look at those things. So there's a couple things that you can do to see that. Use some foot powder spray it on the face, and see where you're striking it on the face. Hit 10 shots, see where you strike them on the face. If they're mostly in the center of the face, then that's not the issue. But if they're all over the place, then there's an issue. Or typically what you're going to see is there's a tendency. Like maybe you're hitting a lot of them on the heel or on the toe. And what basically at that point, what you should be doing is adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. So if you're hitting it way in the heel, try to hit it in the toe to move it in the center of the face, and keep doing that until you actually start striking it on the toe. And at that point, you can ease off of it. But keep doing that until that happens. If you're hitting a big slice or a big hook, work through one of the sections, the sections that accommodates that. So either the never slice again or the never hook again section, and get to where you're swinging more on plane. If it's a spin issue, meaning you're hitting down on the golf ball, work on the compression line and get your body more angled away, stay more behind the ball so that you can hit up on it. Those are really the main things that are going to help you to hit the ball further. 112, you should be probably hitting a little bit further than 260 plus, but should be hitting it around 280 with 112 club head speed for sure. All right. All right, so I got a little bit more time left here. We're right at 10 a.m., so we'll be finishing up here in a second. So Dave P says, how to stop right-hand yips and chipping and putting. So I would try to get set up correctly and really trust your stroke. So set up correctly. Don't get that ball. The reason why a lot of people get yips with the chips is because they see a bunch of bad shots. So they get the ball placement too far back in their stance. They're chopping down into it. They hit a lot of blades and they hit a lot of chunks, and then they end up kind of yipping at the ball because they feel like they're either going to chunk it or blade it. Get that ball more in the middle of your stance with your chips, and that's going to allow you to brush the turf, come in nice and shallow, and hit more consistent shots. Trust the shot. Go practice it. Trust the shot. The worst thing that can happen is that you'll hit a bad shot, right? Well, that's going to happen anyway if you yip it. So trust the shot. Once you start trusting the shot and you start seeing better results, the yips will go away because now you have confidence in what you're doing. Same thing with the putting. Trust the stroke. You got to trust what you're doing. Work on your distance control. A lot of times yips come from people that take way too big of backswings with the putter, and then they really slow down and they yip it at the end. Focus on having a confident stroke where you're working on your distance control, and that will get rid of the yips with the putter as well. All right, so one more question here. Kevin S. says, thanks for clearing me head on that. Loving the 20-minute distance fix and neural adaptation. As a cycling instructor, I find the neural adaptation is critical to improving sprint speed, and it happens to organically by just doing it. I know that doing the max speed drills, it will my swing speed. Awesome. So awesome job, Kevin. Glad to hear that's helping, and it also applies to what you do. So that's great. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me today. We'll be back here tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, have a good one. Take care.